Okay. And I've said this in prior videos. I'm not at in my home office. I am off-site. So see this white background that's really bright. So I appreciate your patience with it. Okay, your son has speech therapy as part of the IEP. Speech issues causing problems in language development areas. Unfortunately for him, his speech therapist quit last October. School hired someone new, but then was sick and really didn't start until after Christmas break. In March, she quit as well. You've been told by the head department would be filling in at the school Tuesdays and Thursdays. However, he's yet to be pulled. You're beginning to doubt he'll receive any kind of speech services for the rest of the year. You're correct about that. You do have another IEP meeting on the 13th to set up ESY for the month of June. They're offering drop-in speech for the entire month in which he'd be able to go every day. My biggest concern is the inconsistency of the services for next school year. You looked into private therapy, but unfortunately because of insurance, it's not something we can afford. Is there a way to have the school system pay for private therapy since they aren't providing it like they're legally required to? You're in Huntsville and you've used an advocate, and you named her. I'm not going to put her out there, but it's an advocate we trust. And I know well and does an excellent job up in the Huntsville, Alabama area to help with his IEP last year. You're stuck. I don't know what to do. Any advice you might have for me would be greatly appreciated. Now, there is all over the place sort of this fluid. Schools can't keep people, guys. We have a deficit in related service personnel, OTs, speech language. We can't get enough special ed teachers, and especially with the explosion in population in the Huntsville area, it's now the biggest city in Alabama. You now have sort of a, I mean, you know, they just a lot of jobs available with that growth, and you know we just can't keep people. Meaning they can't keep people, not me. It's just one of those problems. Now, at the end of the day, do they have a FAPE responsibility, 100% of the duty to provide your child a FAPE? And if those related services, let's say in language or speech, because that's what related services are, they need to relate over to the deficits in your child's educational performance areas, which can include communication. But academics is a big one, and so is social emotional development. So if that's the purpose for your child's speech language services, and he hasn't been receiving them, then yes, that can impact the substantive ability to provide your child a FAPE because they haven't been receiving those services. When the IEP team has determined that those services are required because they relate over to the deficits and addressing those deficits that are impacting these other areas, okay? And he hasn't been receiving those. So on the front end, they need to make up for those services. And you're saying that they're going to provide drop-in speech language. Well, the devil's in the details. How are they going to be doing that? Are they going to be doing it sort of a, you know, in a big mass conversion to where it's in a small group or multiple kids? Or are they going to be doing it one-to-one? Find out. It's very important because, quite frankly, how was it developed or designed or designated in your IEP? Most IEPs in Alabama will have that it can be done in a small group or individual. And they don't distinguish between the two. I don't recommend that, guys. If there's a benefit to small group speech or language, then have that separated. Let's say your child gets 3 times a week of speech language services. And let's say 2 of those sessions need to be one-to-one direct with the SLP, 1 session, small group, in order to apply and generalize the concepts learned individually. That's how it should be structured and explained in the service section. What I typically see is just this broad ambiguous statement to where it says that the speech language services can be done either in a small group or one-to-one. There's a huge difference between need. What are the deficits? What's beneficial? Who are the other kids in a small group? How big is this small group? Is your child the highest functioning kid in the small group to the point where they're being the model when they're not getting any benefit because the kids that they're paired with have much greater need. So do you see where the devil's in the detail? You always need to answer the questions. How is this structured? And it needs to be written in a concise way so that you understand it within the IEP. There needs to be meeting minutes. You need to be able to sit there and point back to this and go, hey, this is how we discussed, this is how I understood it was going to be applied. Okay? Because them offering drop-in speech language services, and not just for your child, but a lot of kids that were disrupted in your school alone, how are they going to make all that up? I don't want you to ever be naive that that's how they're probably going to do it. It's just going to be a mass baptism event to where, you know, they try to sit there and check a box. And I don't necessarily agree with that, especially if it contributed to a lack of progress for your child in the substantive goals designed within their IEP this last year. They need to do more than that. And then you're very correct about your concerns for this next school year. How do you address that? I trusted you this last school year, and you guys failed in every regard. So I need a safeguard. So you structure it as a safeguard. Okay, this is a negotiation, guys. And, you know, if they won't negotiate with you, then they'll negotiate with your advocate. And if they won't negotiate with their advocate, they'll negotiate with me. Okay? But it is very appropriate for you to go in and sit there and say, okay, I trusted you last year. I had patience with you last year. We're not doing that again. Okay? Not my fault you can't find people. Not my fault you're not paying them enough. Not my fault that this is a difficult time to keep people. You have a legal duty to provide my child these services. So let's structure it this way. If you do have an SLP and everything goes great, this is the very concise way that it needs to be done. If there is a disruption that, let's say, extends for more than 2 weeks, either a long-term absence, which occurs, or they lose the staff member, then your fail-safe will trigger, meaning that they have to compensate or reimburse you for private SLP services. They contract with private SLPs for, let's say, independent evaluations. So it wouldn't be difficult for them to get you in to receive these services. And they could even be done during the school day. They can even have that SLP drop in to provide those services in the school during designated periods. Or have you go take your child and then the school would pay the bill or even reimburse you. Similar to transportation. Transportation's a right. If the bus won't pick your child up, then they have to compensate the parent using the federal mileage rate, for example, for you to transport your child to and from school. So it's the same sort of idea with regards to speech language services. If they cannot keep someone, it doesn't mean that they just get a pass, for, well, we'll just cover it during drop-in mass conversion baptism services in the summer. That isn't the appropriate nature. Okay, that doesn't necessarily catch your child up. And it's supposed to be consistent as a companion to the other services that your child needs. Okay, keep that in mind. So you can structure it this way to where the fail-safe trips after a certain designation of time, let's say 2 weeks, without those services, then it would kick over to them having to contract and pay for private services. And it shouldn't be a situation to where they promise to contract with somebody and then that doesn't happen for a month. They'll do that. Like I said, it's always in the details. And make sure you answer the right follow-up questions and have it written down and documented that this is going to be the outside provider. This is our selected outside provider if this were to occur. Which means that they need to coordinate with that outside provider that they could potentially fill the gap for your child during this time. Or you can just agree to have that outside agency do it anyway as a mechanism of remedial or recovery services for their failure to provide it during the school year. Okay? You can do that. Myriad of options. All right? But you're justified for being aggressive in a nice way.